Once again, welcome to my weekly webcast, Ask Chuck. Your questions I will try to answer. They come to me by Twitter, Facebook, or email. I appreciate very much the opportunity to visit with you on this webcast, answer your questions. And if you send in questions that are not answered on this short webcast, I ask you to be patient. We will get your answers in writing. In other words, by mail. I'll go to the first question. On Facebook, David of Des Moines asked, how will cap and trade affect the job market? Some of you might not understand the term cap and trade. Some people would say it would be cap and tax because there's a tremendous energy tax applied to this legislation. It passed the House the weekend before January 4th on almost a party line vote. It's very controversial. I think a lot of people that voted for it are getting a lot of heat for voting for it. Just in case you don't recognize the term cap and trade, it's the bills that are supposed to be dealing with global warming. Global warming, a controversial issue. Some people believe it's a catastrophic situation that's facing us, and other people think it's a spoof. I'm in a position of trying to reach a point where if we're dealing with cap and trade, it'll be done on an international basis so that China and India are confronted. So for David, getting back to his question, how will it affect jobs? If it's done just by the United States and not China or India, we're going to export a lot of manufacturing jobs to China. If it's done on an international basis and China and India are affected the same way that the United States would be affected, we'd have a level playing field, that maybe it wouldn't change jobs much. On the other hand, whether we do it by ourselves or in an international agreement, there's still a lot of inequity between portions of the United States. Like, for instance, if we have a tax on coal and there's a tremendous tax on any fossil fuels, the United States is divided between places that use a lot of coal and places that don't. So the Midwest and the Southeast of the United States generates a lot of electricity by coal, and so it's going to be very economically unfair, an on-level playing field for the Midwest and Southeast of the United States, as opposed to California and New York making out okay under cap and trade legislation. So we have, if we're going to pass something, a responsibility to make sure it's not unfair to some parts of the country so that we would lose jobs in the Midwest and the Southeast to the expense of California and, let's say, New York. The second question comes via Twitter. Caitlin from Tipton asked, what motivated you to become a politician? At a very young age, my mom and dad, who were very small farmers, they were not politically active, they were civically minded, they were interested in government and history. And it seems like in my family, government and history was talked about an awful lot. So that at a very young age, even in elementary school, I was very interested in government and history and studied it and become acquainted with it. So that when I went on to high school, I campaigned to be elected class president. When I went to college, I majored in political science. When I was young, I was elected to the state legislature, and my political career kind of evolved. When I was very young, I never planned on being a U.S. Senator. It wasn't until I served in the U.S. House of Representatives for 4 years that I decided I was going to run for the United States Senate, which I did, and I was successful. So that's Caitlin's how my political career kind of evolved and wasn't planned, but it was planned to be in elective office. But you got to remember, that when you run for office, you're never certain of the success of it, so you have to have another career planned. I ended up being a farmer, but when I was young, I didn't plan on being that farmer. I planned on being a political science professor at some college, but I never had to go that route, except on a part-time basis, because I was elected and have served since. So, I thank very much for the Twitter and Facebook questions. The email me, whatever the case might be. Next week, Ask Chuck will have another answer for a couple questions. I tell you at the end of my answering questions what we're up to this week. Probably behind the scenes, a few people, I'm not included, working out some compromises between a Finance Committee bill and a Health Committee bill on health care reform. Something I was a part of until it became very partisan, when the White House pulled out the rug from our bipartisan negotiations. So that leaves me as a Republican out. I'll be able to vote, I'll be able to offer amendments, I will be very much involved as it goes through the Senate floor, but I'm not involved in these negotiations that are very partisan. Also, there will be maybe what's called the doctor's fix, a Medicare bill, so doctors don't get cut as they do from year to year, because that's the way the formula works. We try to intervene in that so that doesn't happen. That may be up, but I'm not absolutely certain. And then we will have the Commerce, Justice, State Department appropriation bill up to finish, and we will also maybe have conference reports on appropriation bills. I thank you for listening. I invite you to tune in to this webcast and then send your questions. Thank you very much.